My name is Thomas, and I am 70 years old. If you looked at my financial ledger, you would say I am a genius. I have spent the last 4 decades as a master of frugality. I can tell you the price of a gallon of milk in 1994, and I can show you the spreadsheets where I tracked every single nickel that left my pocket for 40 years. I have a retirement account that is deep into the 7 figures, a house that has been paid off for 2 decades, and not a single cent of debt to my name. I did exactly what all the books told me to do. I delayed gratification. I lived below my means. I sacrificed the now for a later that I promised would be glorious. But here is the part of the financial gurus never tell you. Later has finally arrived, and I am sitting in a perfectly maintained, paid-off house, eating a generic brand dinner alone, realizing that I spent my life saving for a future that I've ended up being too lonely to enjoy. I'm telling you this because I see you. I see you at the grocery store agonizing over the price of the name-brand coffee. I see you skipping the family vacation because you'd rather see that $3,000 stay in your index fund. I see you telling your wife, we'll take that trip to Italy when we retire, or telling your kids, we can't afford the good summer camp this year, even though your bank account says otherwise. I was the king of not now. I thought I was being responsible. I thought I was being a provider. But looking back from 70, I realized I wasn't providing a future. I was hoarding a life that I never actually lived. I traded the vibrant, irreplaceable experiences of my 30s, 40s and 50s for numbers on a screen that I'm now too old and too tired to do anything with. Let me take you back to 1985. I was 31 years old, and my wife, Mary, wanted to take our 2 young daughters to Disney World. We had the money. I had been working 6 days a week, but my savings goal for that year was non-negotiable. I sat Mary down with a calculator and showed her how that $2,000 trip, if invested at an 8% return, would be worth $20,000 by the time we retired. I felt so smart. I felt so superior. I told her, we'll go when I retire, and we'll go in style. Mary didn't argue. She just looked disappointed. My daughters grew up, and we never went to Disney. We never went anywhere that wasn't sensible. Now, 40 years later, that money has indeed grown. It's worth more than $20,000 now, but my daughters are 40. They have their own lives, and they don't want to go to Disney with their 70-year-old father. The gratification I delayed didn't just get postponed, it died. That is the trap of the saving mindset when it's taken to the extreme. You start to treat life like a math problem rather than an experience. I remember one summer, my brother invited us to join his family at a lake house they had rented. It was $500 for the week. I said no. I told him it was an unnecessary expense. I stayed home and worked. My brother has photos of that week. My daughters playing with their cousins, the late-night bonfires, the smiles. I'm not in any of those photos. I have $500 plus 40 years of interest instead. Do you know what I would give for those photos now? I'd give every penny of that interest to have been in that water with my girls. I spent my life preparing for a rainy day, but I was so focused on the storm that I forgot to enjoy the sunshine. I lived in a state of constant low-level anxiety about the future. I thought that if I just hit a certain number in my 401k, I would finally feel safe enough to relax. But safe is a moving target. When I hit 500,000, I wanted $1 million. When I hit $1 million, I worried about inflation and wanted 2. The goalpost never stops moving, but your health and your energy do. I'm 70 now. I have the money for the first-class tickets to Italy. I have the money for the finest hotels. But my knees can't handle the cobblestone streets. My heart can't handle the long flights. I have the wealth, but the window of opportunity to use it has slammed shut. My daughters are cordial to me, but we aren't close. How could we be? I spent their childhoods being the man who said no. No to the movies, no to the trendy clothes, no to the extracurricular activities that cost money. I thought I was teaching them value, but what I was actually teaching them was that money was more important than their happiness. Now, they don't ask me for anything. They don't involve me in their financial lives, and they certainly don't look to me for memories. They see me as a man who is well off, but miserly. I built a mountain of gold, and I'm sitting on it alone, watching the world go by through a window I paid off 30 years ago. The worst part is that Mary isn't here to see the later I promised her. She passed away 3 years ago, just 2 years into my retirement. We spent 40 years sacrificing for our golden years. We used the old mismatched plates. We drove the cars until they literally fell apart. We never ate at the nice restaurants. I always told her, "Wait until we retire, Mary. Then we'll live like royalty." But Mary never got to be royalty. She spent her life as the wife of a man who was obsessed with a future that she never got to inhabit. Now I sit in this house with the good china that we never used, and I realize that the rainy day I was saving for was actually every day I spent saying not yet to her. I see you young people on the FIRE movement or the extreme savings forums, and I want to scream. I want to tell you that frugality is a tool, not a personality. If you are saving at the expense of your joy, you are losing. If you are choosing a balance sheet over a memory, you are making a bad investment. You can always make more money, but you can never, ever make more time. I am the richest man in my neighborhood, and I would trade my entire portfolio to be 35 again, with $100 in my pocket and my wife's hand in mine, walking into a movie theater we couldn't afford. The hardest lesson I had to learn, and I learned it far too late, is that wealth is not what you keep, it's what you experience. I spent 40 years thinking that every dollar I saved was a victory over the future. I thought I was winning a game against uncertainty. But in the end, the only thing I truly saved was a pile of paper, while I let the actual substance of my life slip through my fingers like sand. I look at my granddaughters now. They are young, full of energy, and they look at the world with so much wonder. My daughter recently asked if I wanted to go with them on a weekend trip to a mountain cabin. My first instinct, honed over half a century, was to check the cost. I started calculating the gas, the rental fee, the price of eating out, and then I stopped. I realized I was about to say no to a memory because of a $300 price tag. I'm a millionaire, and I was almost ready to let $300 stand between me and my family. That is the sickness of the savings trap. It changes your brain. It makes you a person who knows the price of everything but the value of nothing. I ended up going on that trip, but even there I struggled to be present. I found myself worrying about the waste of leaving the lights on in the cabin or the cost of the wood for the fire. I have spent so long practicing the art of restriction that I no longer know how to practice the art of living. I realized that afternoon, watching my granddaughters jump into a lake, that I have become a prisoner of my own discipline. I built the bars of this cage out of smart investments and low-cost index funds, and I locked the door with a budget. I see men my age who have nothing. They worked hard, they had bad luck, or they were simply never able to save. And while their physical lives are difficult, some of them have a wealth of stories that I simply don't possess. They talk about the time they took a beat-up car across the country. They talk about the massive parties they threw for their friends. They talk about the risks they took. When it's my turn to speak, what do I have? I have the story of how I found a slightly higher interest rate at a different bank. I have the story of how I saved 10% on my insurance. My highlights are all mathematical. They aren't human. I am a man with a full wallet and an empty scrapbook. If you are in your peak earning years, I am not telling you to be reckless. I am not telling you to throw away your future. but I am telling you to stop treating your life like a business that needs to be maximized for profit. Your life is not a corporation, it is a limited-time engagement. I want you to look at your savings and ask yourself, what am I actually saving this for? If the answer is safety, how much safety do you really need? If the answer is the kids, have you asked them if they'd rather have your money when you're dead or your time while you're alive? Most of us are saving for a version of ourselves that will never exist. A version that is old, but somehow still has the energy and the people around us to make the money worth it. My wife Mary once bought a beautiful, expensive wool coat. It was a splurge, something she rarely did because she knew how I felt about excess. She looked so radiant in it. But every time she wore it, I would make a small comment about how much it cost or how we could have used that money for the emergency fund. Eventually she stopped wearing it. She tucked it away in the back of the closet to avoid my judgment. After she passed away, I found that coat. It still had the scent of her perfume on the collar. It was perfectly preserved, almost brand new, because I had shamed her into not enjoying it. I sat in that closet and held that coat and wept. I would give my entire retirement fund to see her wear that coat just one more time. I would give it all back to have been a man who said, "You look beautiful," instead of a man who said, "That was too expensive." Don't be the person who leaves behind a perfectly preserved life. Wear the coat, take the trip, buy the good wine. If you have the means, use them while you have the senses to enjoy them. We are so afraid of running out of money that we don't realize we are running out of life every single day. The rainy day isn't coming in 20 years. It's the day you realize you're too old to do the things you love. It's the day you realize your house is full of stuff you never used, and empty of the people you pushed away with your frugality. I'm 70, and I'm finally learning how to spend. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm trying to take my daughters out to dinners they don't expect. I'm trying to tip the waiter $50 just because I can. I'm trying to say yes to every invitation, no matter the cost. But the guilt still haunts me. That savor's voice in my head is loud, and it tells me I'm being foolish. But I know now that the only foolish thing I ever did was thinking that a high net worth was a substitute for a high-quality life. I'm a millionaire who is just now learning how to be a human being. Success isn't the number in your bank account when you die. Success is the number of people who show up to your funeral with stories about how you made their lives better, more fun, or more adventurous. It's the memories you left behind in the hearts of your children. I'm trying to build those memories now in the twilight, but it's like trying to plant a garden in the winter. It's possible, but it's so much harder than it would have been in the spring. If you're watching this and you've been obsessed with the grind and the save, I want you to do something today. Buy something unnecessary for someone you love. Take an afternoon off and go do something that has absolutely no ROI other than pure joy. Break your own rules. I promise you the world won't end. Your index fund will still be there tomorrow. But the chance to be generous, the chance to be spontaneous, the chance to be alive, that might not be. Thank you for listening to my story. It's a quiet one, but it's heavy. If you felt the weight of this savings guilt, or if you've realized you're living for a future that's costing you your present, please leave a comment. I want to know I'm not the only one who learned this the hard way. Like this video if it helped you reevaluate your priorities, and subscribe if you want to hear more from someone who is trying to spend his final years unlearning a lifetime of responsibility. Now go out and spend some time and maybe a little money on the people you love. They are the only investment that truly matters.